These ultras have insane flaws, and I think it's really worth discussing why they're flawed. Even though some of them might have had high peaks, there's a reason they're not being used today, and for some of them had very short lifespans. So let's talk about it. Okay, my name's Zakashi, guys, and in this video here, this is a continuation from a previous video of a previous video. In the original video, I discussed why certain ultras won't ever fall off, and I also included some ultras that have already fallen off. But I felt like there was a bunch of ultras that could easily be fixed, and I'm going to explain their flaws in this video. To understand the full premise of this video, it's integral that you check out the previous video, otherwise you won't understand my reasons for how I'm processing all of these things. I would prefer that you don't just go in the comment section with a blind eye and not understand where I'm coming from because of the things I explained, as you'd be answering from a surface level point of view rather than following along with the series. Let's get into this. Right, so for the first category here, we're going to be focusing on ultras that haven't lasted or they're not going to last based on them being built on an outdated premise, which would be straight damage. Most characters will have ultimate arts, good blast damage, good strike damage, whichever way they're built, whatever, and that's about it. Once you get past that, eventually every unit gets clipped by power creep, and then the unit is no longer relevant anymore. It could even be they don't even get hit by power creep, they just fall off the boost, and then from there they're done. Super Saiyan Goku, he's a free to play, so it should kind of be self-explanatory that his kit is quite bland. We also got the same thing with Vegeta here. They're meant to be doing damage, and that's their main thing. This Kaioken has a plat, and I'm not saying he's bad, but he's flawed in the sense that he's comprised from doing blast damage, but you can easily get through this guy, and that's a shame. You know, you have to play really smart with him, and you have to work really hard to get results out of this guy. Same thing here with Goku Black Rose. In the period that he dropped, he was high damage power, high peak, insanely scary. But nowadays, everybody has cover null. You know, everybody is able to break combos, and this guy here who doesn't get cover nullification, everybody has cover changes too, he can't stop nothing. He's gonna get stopped and he can't stop anything, so his damage just isn't enough. He needs to offer more. Even if this guy does high damage, right, his combos are gonna be very difficult to get off unless you're playing super smart and you get convenient scenarios. It's not something that's lasting long term, which is why people have stopped using this guy. And the newest one here, Beast Gohan. I want to speak about him in a future sense, but I think it's very clear that he's here to correct the problem that exists in the game. His release, like they mentioned, is about high damage power, big attacks. You're not meant to be doing combos. He serves the purpose of just being a high firepower type of unit that should show through his active gauge and just the damage he does. But it's already very apparent that he's very squishy. He doesn't have no second life mechanic besides from his counter. That is nice, but once that damage falls off, this guy's going to serve less and less purpose, similar to Go Frieza. And I think that's a flaw, even though they've dropped him for the intention of saving the meta in a sense. Even though I wouldn't say he's necessarily done that, he has made it in a sense a healthier place, a more fun place to play PvP. So he's doing his job, but I think it's very likely, just like every other unit that's just comprised of damage, he will fall off and his damage won't be enough to keep, I mean, his kit won't be enough to stay relevant. He is nice and all, the activate could still do damage, but it takes a while to get there, especially when this guy is not the tankiest anyways. So all of these guys are in the same boat of just being built in an outdated way. They're focusing on you building up damage, doing damage, while not being able to protect themselves necessarily. Beast Gohan is the closest thing to protection in this tier of characters. This guy may be sealing cards, but that's not even protection. That's more like prevention of damage, you know, before you even get hit. This guy is actually preventing something, but even then, it's gonna be to a point where it's not as relevant anymore because he's not gonna do as much damage. His active gauge is gonna go slightly downhill, and then I will also say he won't even be getting the chance to heal because he's gonna get nuked. And that's just a shame, but that's what happens to a lot of these units. I had to add another recording because I forgot to add Ultra Super Gogeta. He's in that exact same boat. No survivability. Even his plat, they've added high damage power, and he does heal every so often. Once he gets below 50%, he's able to nullify endurance and do type neutral blue cards a lot. But once that damage falls off a cliff, he's not going to be able to provide anything. Even right now, a lot of people just opt in for him because right now he's high damage power. So he's there to provide that solution for the current meta, which is those insanely long combos. But once the time is up for that, what else is there? Power creep is inevitable. No unit avoids it. And if you're based on high damage power, you've only got a certain amount of time before people stop using you, unfortunately. Ultra Super Gogeta has already gone through this. They gave him his plat. he's just gonna go through the same cycle again. It might even happen faster this time, which is what's unfortunate. Now this category here, I'm gonna call it the defense category. That's what I'm going to call it. All of these units provide offenses as well, but it's way more optimal to use them in a defensive state and then kind of counter attack to do damage. So you know Broly, he's built around his gauge. He's meant to break your combo and then be able to counter attack and take advantage of that, you know, but once his defenses falls off, it's not gonna have a place in the game, which is already the case, which is why nobody uses him, which is pretty sad. Omega Shenron, same thing. You know, they gave him the plat and he's meant to be tanking, but I think the worst thing about him is that they've restricted him. I believe he has to be used on GT, which is such a shame. But even him being restricted, you run him on GT, he's getting melted. So him having the survivability isn't even enough. So it's like a temporary defense meta where they make him useful for the time being. And then beyond that, once power creep hits, those defenses are not going to be as pure as they are. Now, Kid Buu here, out of all these three, I might say in their peaks, Kid Buu is actually the most offensive here. I love his blue card specifically, but in the same way, he's able to get pretty much melted. So his endurance isn't even enough to protect you. And that's pretty much just sad, you know. You're good for the time being and you can do offensive power because you're the newest ultra cool, but you're just another victim of power creep, but just in a different way. So it's not mainly focused on their offenses. And in most cases, if you don't have offenses, you're not going to last. You're a good asset to a team where you're serving somebody else, and that's pretty much all they'll have for whatever period of time it is. They're on a timer. You could say every unit's on a timer, but some units resurrect, and I don't feel like these three are the kind to do that. Especially this guy already has a plat, this guy already has a plat. Kid Buu might come back for a little bit, but then it'll be up after that. It's just gonna be a wrap, and that's a shame. It's a shame. The idea of building people for a short period of time, it doesn't give them longevity, and I don't feel like everybody's meant to have longevity anyways, but for the value that you want to get out of an ultra, these guys jump off a cliff really quickly, you know. Now this segment here, I'm gonna basically call it the gimmicks segment. They get a mechanic, you know, but I don't feel like it was actually well thought through. Or if not that, it's just one of those things that's going to only last for a very short period of time. Now, granted, we know how Ultra Super Vegito's story went. He got clipped by Cooler, but that's just a very unfortunate scenario, you know. You can't predict that. But with Ultra Hit and Super Janemba more heavily than Ultra Super Vegito, all of these guys will peak in their prime, undoubtedly. And that should go without saying. But you can see easily with a bit of time on their hands, Ultra Hit's time skip, it just became a weakness. Because if he doesn't land his time skip, bear in mind, it's not a guaranteed thing to land. It's not difficult to land, let me also say, but it's not a guaranteed thing to land. If he doesn't land that, he might be an average unit at best, maybe below. He can do decent damage here and there, but the main thing is that you land his time skip so you can assassinate someone. If you look at Beast Gohan's quality right now, you know, that active gauge, that's the peak of what we're looking for. And we saw what Ultra Hit could do when he dropped. But beyond that time skip, with one ultimate only to your disposable, you're not even going to be able to do damage. What's the point of getting the time skip up multiple times if you can't even use the ultimate, which is the main thing that does damage in the time skip? And I feel like that's just a gimmick, you know? You're just here to have fun. You're here to do damage, yes, in your release, but the power creep is going to clip you, and your kit's not even going to be useful, not even 6 months down the line. They got this guy out really fast, which is a shame. I don't think he made it past the anniversary. Ultra Super Janemba, same thing. He peaked because at the time, he was high damage power, and to get past his gauge, it's scary, you know. He's going to immediately be able to land the ultimate, and that ultimate is nuke potential. But the minute greens became relevant, and this guy only has one ultimate, even though his gauge can go up, well, it's two ultimates, even though his gauge can go up pretty easily, you know, it's very easy to bypass him. You just have to bring in a green, you tank that, and it's like, oh, you're done, you know. You don't have to actually worry about Janemba too much. You just have to consider the fact that he's going to do an ultimate, and when he hits that ultimate, just have a green to tank it. And that like stops his whole kit. I feel like he should have just had type neutral in addition, maybe on his ultimate that could not be cancelled, and that would correct everything. That would correct everything wrong with this guy. But because of the way his counter works, you know, you're gonna get the ultimate immediately, and you're pretty much forced to hit it. You don't have to, but in that case, you know, you just bring a green and it stops, so he's not gonna do damage. And beyond that, he's maybe an above average unit at best, doing long combos, good combos, I'm not gonna lie, but the damage falls off. So what else is he going to offer? You know, you can get him out of here with a rising rush, people can nuke him. So it's pretty sad. I didn't speak about Ultra Super Vegito. And it should already be a given that his strike counter, it was good in its prime because it's high damage when he releases. That's the case for all of these ultras. But long term, that counter isn't even great, you know. Getting cover nullification off of that counter and then not being able to utilize it because you don't have priority, you have to re-earn, you never earned it in the first place, to be honest. You have to earn the priority and you only have 10 time accounts. So let's say you use it, right? You get the 10 time accounts, then you're gliding, maybe you're gonna vanish. You've already wasted 2 time accounts at least. You're maybe still making the decision because the person wants to be passive. You're gonna waste at least, in most cases, 4 to 6 time accounts before you actually get in a position, especially knowing that somebody just took a strike amount of damage from you countering them. So fair enough, it does damage in its prime, but time passing made this guy really bad. He doesn't have any correction for his survivability, so he has endurance, but you can just break through it. He became glass over time, and Cooler, like I said, took him out, and you couldn't predict that, so I'm not going to put that on his dome, because he could have definitely returned, but he never made a strong return, and that should show that his kit had somewhat of a bad template for why he couldn't. But what I will say is, I feel like a plat could correct this guy, and this guy, and this guy. But it really depends on what they do. They're gonna just have to add a whole unique, you know, more than they already have been doing. Now, this segment here, the reason he's separated, Ultra Gold G to Blue has his own segment. He wasn't either in the video prior where I talk about the ones that won't fall off, but he isn't in this one either. I'm calling him the exception because I think his kit is actually amazing. But there's literally one minor problem that you can't even blame him for because he lasted almost 2 years. So I don't feel like it's fair to critique him, but I don't feel like it's fair to also say that he's going to be a unit that lasts a long time because we've already seen the results of how he's progressed. The main thing about him that I dislike is the fact that it takes too long for him to get going, and that's based on how he operated in the movie. I believe it takes like 40 time accounts for him to become the superhuman that he is. 30 time accounts here, and he gets all these extra added buffs, and then here 60 time accounts have elapsed, he gets all these extra added buffs. With these two, if you just lower the time it takes or give it to him from the jump, this guy is an absolute superhuman right now. I'm telling you, his gauge is already good enough. However, what I will say is because his defenses have fallen off, he's not able to tank, to prioritize, to use his gauge as effectively as he would have back in the day. But these two, because of how long it takes, 30 time accounts just to make him good regarding this stuff, 60 time accounts is absurd to get these buffs. Oh my god, we are waiting way too long. By then, because he's aged by power creep, and like I said, he lasted over a year, almost 2 years. It's not, you can't critique him in terms of longevity because he has that. You're just not going to be able to utilize him because you're waiting too long in nowadays. But at his prime, that was a very good setback. But they didn't consider the long-term value, and I think that's fine. Even his green card here, it just gets super buffed depending on how many time accounts has passed. It's all about how he progressed in the movie, you know. He was playing around and he didn't go out his way to finish Broly straight away. He was trying stuff. And that means that as the longer the battle goes on, they made his kit just like it was in the movie. That's why he's the exception. His kit is amazing. It's actually amazing. He lasted almost 2 years. So there's no reason to really critique him. But for the long term, if those numbers go down, he's him. So imagine if he had that on release, this guy would be insane right now. It's actually quite annoying that he doesn't have those numbers down because he would be goated. I'd be using him today. I wouldn't because Beast Gohan and Majin Vegeta. But maybe in the anniversary, I would have been using him. You know what I'm saying? That's why he's the exception. But yeah, man, that's going to be the end of the video. I think I explained my points very well, and categorizing them like this makes a lot of sense. It makes it very clear how they all are grouped in like a similar way based on how their kits have been formed by the devs. Shout out UGB though, the true exception. That slight tweak will make him goated. If you use them with Zenkai buffs, you really just wait until those time accounts go past, and then you can 3v1 almost anybody. It's actually absurd. He doesn't have survivability, but the way his kit is built, even past 60 time accounts, he is a solo unit and can do the right amount of damage. But for the rest of them, I think it's a lot more apparent that they've fallen off a cliff because they were built with the flaws that I mentioned. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. If you haven't already, make sure to press that subscribe button. We're on this grind to 200,000 subscribers. I appreciate you guys for watching, man. My name is Zakashi, guys, and I will see you guys in the next one, man.